Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into this art heist mystery
Oh, yeah?
that you sent to us, theft of a valuable painting from the Royal Art Gallery in London.
Mhm.
And
Love this one.
it's a good one. It's like Sherlock Holmes meets modern day London with a
Yeah.
lot of intrigue thrown in for good measure.
Right.
And we've got sources that look like firsthand accounts from the investigation itself,
Oh, wow.
almost like we're reading the detective's notes in real time.
Okay.
So get ready for twists and turns and maybe even a surprise ending you won't see coming.
I love surprises.
What's fascinating about this case
Yeah.
is the level of meticulous planning.
Yeah, right from the start, we can see that this was no ordinary break-in.
Right. The sources introduce us to Officer Brown
Okay.
and Officer Patel, the partners on the case.
Mm-hmm.
And Brown's a seasoned officer, someone who's seen London evolve over the years.
His experience is key here. He's seen the city transform from the days of relying on gut instinct and pounding the pavement to a world of digital footprints and forensic analysis. This case is a collision of old and new, and Brown's right in the middle of it.
That contrast between old and new London that you mentioned makes me wonder if those traditional detective skills will still be relevant
Yeah.
in cracking this case.
It's a fascinating question. While technology plays an increasingly important role in modern investigations, the fundamental principles of observation, deduction, and understanding human behavior remain as crucial as ever. In many ways, this case might be a test of how those traditional skills adapt and evolve in the digital age.
Okay, so let's get to the crime scene itself.
Or-
We're at the Royal Art Gallery, and it seems like the owner, Mr. Harris, is quite meticulous
Yeah,
about security.
Absolutely. He insists on nightly security checks, which makes the fact that a large golden frame painting could simply vanish all the more perplexing.
It's strange. You'd think with regular checks the disappearance would have been noticed sooner. Makes you wonder what else we're missing.
Exactly. The security check suggests this wasn't an opportunistic theft. We're dealing with professionals who planned meticulously, potentially targeting this specific painting.
All right, so Brown and Patel start digging into the evidence. They review the security footage
Okay.
and spot a masked figure lurking about at 2:00 a.m.
Oh.
Not exactly helpful in terms of identification, right?
The mask is a classic tactic, obviously intended to thwart identification. It speaks to a level of awareness and premeditation. However, the presence of the masked figure itself might be a clue.
Oh, what do you mean?
Think about it. If they were so meticulous about wiping fingerprints and disabling the alarm system, why risk being seen on camera at all? It suggests they needed to be present for a specific reason, perhaps to ensure the success of a particular part of their plan.
That's a really good point. It makes them seem almost overly cautious. I mean, they could have just slipped in while the security guard was on their rounds.
But remember the gallery owner mentioned nightly checks?
Oh, right.
Perhaps their presence at 2 a.m. was timed to coincide with a known gap in those checks.
Okay, so maybe this wasn't just a random break-in. Maybe the timing was carefully chosen to exploit a weakness in the security routine.
Precisely. Now let's move on to the fingerprints.
Okay.
As you mentioned, they were wiped clean, another indication of their methodical approach. And the only other physical clue they found was a broken lock.
But wouldn't a professional thief know to avoid leaving such an obvious trace? Could this be a deliberate misdirection?
That's an excellent question. It's certainly possible they wanted to make it look like a more straightforward break-in, diverting attention from the true nature of their plan.
So they might be trying to make it look like an amateur job. Okay, so the detective decided to interview the gallery staff.
Makes sense.
And the first staff member, gone.
What?
House completely empty.
This is where the case takes its first major turn. The disappearance of a staff member adds a whole new layer of complexity. Is this a coincidence, or is there a connection to the art theft?
It seems like too much of a coincidence, right?
Indeed.
Hmm.
And it's worth noting that Brown, with his years of experience, seems particularly intrigued by this development.
He even starts reflecting on his early days as an officer walking those same streets, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah.
It shows how this case is stirring up memories and making him think about how much London has changed.
Absolutely. It's almost as if he's trying to reconcile the London he knew with its more traditional investigative methods with the complex, technology-driven world of modern crime. But the investigation doesn't stop there. They proceed to the second staff member's house, and again, it's empty.
But this time there are signs of a struggle. This isn't just a missing employee anymore. Things are starting to feel dangerous.
And just when you think it can't get any more complicated, they find a dropped photograph revealing a connection to an unknown man.
A mysterious figure. It's like each new piece of evidence raises more questions than it answers.
Precisely. and the pressure is mounting for Brown and Patel. They know that if they don't act fast, these individuals and potentially the painting could be gone for good.
So we've got two missing staff members, a masked figure,
Right.
a broken lock, that might be a red herring,
Yeah.
and a mysterious photograph.
Uh-huh.
It's like we're trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces keep changing shape.
And the clock is ticking. Each passing hour increases the chances of those involved disappearing completely.
Back at the gallery, Brown makes another interesting observation. The alarm system
Yeah.
wasn't just triggered, it was expertly disabled.
This is a crucial detail. It confirms our suspicion that we're not dealing with amateurs. Disabling an alarm system requires a level of technical knowledge that points to someone with inside knowledge, potentially one of the missing staff members.
Wait, hold on. If one of the missing staff members disabled the alarm, does that mean they were involved in the theft?
Well, it's impossible to say for sure at this point.
No.
They could be willing accomplices, perhaps motivated by money or some other incentive, or they could be victims themselves, coerced into helping the thieves.
Okay, that's a good point. We've been assuming they're involved, they could be in danger. This is getting more complicated by the minute.
This is where Brown's experience will be crucial. He's dealt with enough cases to know that appearances can be deceiving. He'll need to carefully consider all the evidence before jumping to any conclusions.
Okay, so the plot thickens, but then they get a break. They find hidden camera footage from a storage room showing two figures moving a wrapped painting.
This is a significant development. It confirms that the painting was indeed stolen and not simply misplaced or miscatalogued as sometimes happens.
Right, but their faces were obscured.
Yeah.
So close yet so far. It's amazing how much you can learn from nonverbal communication. This footage might be more helpful than it seems.
Absolutely. And it's this footage that leads to a thrilling chase and apprehension at a warehouse.
Talk about adrenaline. Brown tackles one suspect, Patel arrests the other. They've caught them red-handed, or so it seems.
This is where we encounter that unexpected twist you were warned about. Remember how we talked about surprises?
Yeah.
The recovered artwork is not the stolen painting.
What? No way. What's going on here? Did they grab the wrong painting?
That's the million-dollar question. We have two individuals caught in possession of stolen artwork, but it's the wrong artwork. Were they simply incompetent? Or is there something more going on here?
Okay, if they were hired to steal a specific painting and they grabbed the wrong one, does that mean they were working for someone else?
That's a very plausible theory. It raises the question, who hired them and where is the real masterpiece?
It's like they were just pawns in a much larger game. It makes you wonder if they even know who they were really working for.
This scenario adds another layer of complexity to the investigation. We now have to consider the possibility of a mastermind operating behind the scenes, orchestrating the entire operation.
So we've gone from a simple art theft to a possible conspiracy involving a mysterious unknown figure pulling the strings.
That's exactly where the evidence seems to be leading. And if these individuals are merely pawns, they may not even possess the information needed to locate the real painting.
This is so frustrating. We're back to square one with even more questions than before.
Not necessarily. We have to remember that every piece of information, no matter how seemingly insignificant, could be a clue.
Okay, so what should we be focusing on? Where do we go from here?
We need to consider all the evidence, look for connections, and try to understand the motives of everyone involved. Let's go back to Mr. Harris, the gallery owner. He mentioned that only the staff were present the day before the theft.
You think one of the missing staff members might be the key? But their motives are still unclear. Were they forced into helping the thieves, or did they willingly participate? And what about that unknown man in the photograph?
Those are excellent questions, and they all point to the need for further investigation. We need to determine the nature of the relationship between the missing staff members, the unknown man, and the individuals caught at the warehouse.
So we're essentially looking for a link between these two seemingly separate groups. It's like trying to find the missing piece that connects two halves of a puzzle.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the expertly disabled alarm system. Could one of the missing staff members have been coerced into shutting it down, granting the thieves access to the gallery?
That would certainly explain how they got in so easily. But it still doesn't tell us where the real painting is or who is ultimately behind this whole scheme.
Right, but it does suggest that at least one of the staff members might have deeper involvement than initially suspected. They could be a victim, an accomplice, or even a co-conspirator.
This is like peeling back the layers of an onion, and with each layer, the story becomes more intricate, the stakes higher.
And the mystery deepens.
So we've got these two seemingly separate groups, the thieves that were caught and the missing staff members, and we're trying to figure out how they connect, who might be pulling the strings, and of course, where that missing painting could be. What's next in the investigation?
This is where things get really interesting. Faced with so many unanswered questions, Brown seems to step back from the chaos of the case and allow his mind to wander a bit.
That makes sense. Sometimes you need to take a break from the details to see the bigger picture, right?
Exactly. And it's during this moment of reflection that Brown recalls a seemingly insignificant detail, a small cafe he used to frequent in his early days on the force.
The one he mentioned to Patel during their stakeout? Is
Yes.
this the same place where he used to grab a bite to eat on his beat?
That's the one. But it wasn't just any cafe. Brown remembers it being a popular hangout for artists, art students, and as he later discovered some individuals with ties to the shadier side of the art world.
Wait, are you saying that this little cafe from Brown's past could be connected to the art heist?
It's a long shot, but sometimes the most unlikely connections turn out to be the key. Brown remembers overhearing conversations, snippets of information about forgeries, black market deals, and even whispers about a shadowy figure known only as the Maestro.
The Maestro! What kind of name is that? Sounds like a comic book villain.
It's a fitting moniker, actually. The Maestro was rumored to be a master art forger, someone capable of creating replicas so perfect that even experts could be fooled.
Hold on, you're not suggesting that the painting they recovered is a forgery, are you?
It's a possibility worth considering. If the Maestro is involved, then everything we thought we knew about this case could be wrong. What if the real painting was never stolen, but instead swapped with a forgery?
Wow, that's a pretty wild theory. But it would explain why those thieves had the wrong painting. They were hired to steal a fake. This whole thing could have been orchestrated from the beginning.
Precisely. And if the Maestro is the mastermind behind this elaborate scheme, it would take an investigator with Brown's unique experience and intuition to see through the deception.
Okay, so what does Brown do next? Does he track down this Maestro character?
Brown decides to revisit the cafe, hoping to jog his memory and see if anyone remembers this mysterious figure. He's relying on his past connections, those whispers and rumors he overheard all those years ago. It's a classic example of old-school detective work, using personal connections and knowledge of the city to uncover leads.
So he's going back to his roots, to a time before digital footprints and facial recognition to solve a crime in the digital age. That's pretty cool.
And as he sits in that familiar booth sipping his coffee, the pieces start to fall into place. He remembers a name, a face, a particular detail about a past forgery that suddenly seems relevant to the current case.
So it's starting to make sense.
The fog is clearing. The captured thieves, the wrong painting, the missing staff members, the mysterious Maestro, they're all part of an elaborately staged performance designed to deceive everyone.
So the real painting was never stolen. It was switched out with a forgery right under everyone's noses. But how did they pull that off? And who orchestrated the whole thing?
Based on the information we have, it seems the Maestro used the missing staff members, perhaps without their knowledge, to facilitate the swap. They were the ones who had access to the painting, who could disable the alarm, and who could create a window for the thieves to enter and exit unnoticed. The thieves themselves were likely just a distraction, a way to draw attention away from the real scheme.
But why go through all this trouble? Why not just steal the painting?
Because the Maestro isn't just a forger, he's a showman. He wants to create a masterpiece of deception, to prove that he can fool even the most discerning eye. The goal was never simply to possess the artwork. It was to replace it with a copy so perfect that no one would ever suspect the switch.
That's incredibly audacious. So what happens to the real painting? And what about the Maestro? Does Brown catch him?
Those are questions we might never have the answers to. The sources we have end here, leaving us with a sense of both satisfaction and lingering mystery. We've uncovered a fascinating tale of deception, but some threads remain tantalizingly untied.
That's true. But we've learned so much about the intricate world of art theft, the lengths that some will go to for profit or recognition, and the importance of those traditional detective skills even in a world dominated by technology.
Exactly. This deep dive has shown us that sometimes the most valuable clues are hidden in plain sight in the whispers of the past, in the seemingly insignificant details that only a keen observer would notice.
It's a reminder that even in a world of high-tech surveillance and sophisticated forensic techniques, the human element remains essential in solving crimes. And sometimes a good cup of coffee and a trip down memory lane can lead to the most unexpected breakthroughs.
So the next time you encounter a puzzle, a mystery, or even just a seemingly insignificant detail that sparks your curiosity, remember Officer Brown and his journey back to that little cafe. You never know what secrets you might uncover if you allow yourself to delve a little deeper.
Well, on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the unsolved mysteries of this art heist. Perhaps the maestro is out there somewhere admiring his handiwork, or maybe he's already planning his next grand illusion.
Until next time, keep those eyes peeled, those minds sharp, and never underestimate the power of a good story.